What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to my channel. So today on my bench, I have my Traxxas E-Maxx. This was another one of my builds I built after I built the Rustler because I wanted another monster truck, kind of like the T-Max, but a little bit stronger. Something that can handle the power of the brushless motor. So I've got the E-Maxx with the brushless motor system in it. Well, I built it, but this was the plan, was to build the brushless one. So that's what I did. So let's get into it. So I took the old tires that I had off my T-Max and I painted them black and I put them on here. And these are the chevrons. And if you guys remember, I have the Proline bow ties on my T-Max. So I went the chevrons on here. Another thing I did was I purchased a clear body from Traxxas. This is original Traxxas body. I purchased it, it was clear, and I painted it white. I put a skid rail on the top. This skid rail I have on a lot of my vehicles. I have one on the T-Max right there, and I have the Rustler 4x4 skid plate on the two-wheel drive Rustler, and that right there is the Max skid plate. So these two has the skid plate from the Traxxas Max. Now I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't goes on there because they're designed for the clipless body system, but I'm gonna tell you how I made it work. On the back of it, there's 4 mounting locations. So you're able to put 4 screws from the body up into the skid plate. You just have to drill 4 holes into the body. Now it has posts that come down a little bit, so you'll have to shave it down a little bit. You'll see what I mean when I get to the other side. You'll have to shave it down a little bit, maybe get you some washers to take up the space, but just shave the post down. And another thing I do is I use some 3M double-sided tape, and I put some along in all of the 4 corners. I put some all along in the corners, and then I lined it up right where I wanted it at, and then I dropped it down. But I left the slots open where I can screw it at. That way I can go up with the screws and don't have anything in the way. But I did that also because when if you just was to just put the screws in without double-sided tape or without anything, the latest thing flat, it will have a gap in between. Like it will have a space right here in the front and in the rear back here. So I just like to use the double-sided tape to lay it flush down on there. Another thing I like to do is I like to use the washers to even the load out for the pin, so the pin don't come snapping through the body and put a big hole in the body. So I do that all the way around. And I use the Arma clip retainers. I love these things, man. If you get some of these, you won't have to worry about clips for a while unless it breaks off from right there. But other than that, these things are awesome. If the car do any flips and you land upside down, or you popping wheelies and stuff like that, your clip come out and it's gone. You looking around for it. You got some spares. Hopefully you have some spares. You can pop that in. But when you have these clip retainers, you don't have to worry about that. So that's another upgrade that you guys can get. I have the RPM bumper in the front. I have the RPM bumper in the rear. And you'll hear me talk a lot about RPM parts. I love RPM parts. Their parts are so strong. It's a plastic, but it's a certain type of plastic that they use. They warranty their product, and they say if it breaks, then you could just send it in, send a broken part in, and they'll send you a new one. I haven't had any RPM parts break to test that warranty out. But I mean, I've been having RPM on all my cars, and I've been using them for a while, so that says a lot. I have the Traxxas Wheelie Bar back here. Now, the Traxxas Wheelie Bar, it's got its ups and its downs. I like the Wheelie Bar if you do a couple mods to make it stay in place like this. You can put a zip tie on there. I got 3 up there. I usually use 2, but I got that one in the middle, kind of like an overkill. But pretty much the Traxxas Wheelie Bar is adjustable. You see here it's slit right there and right there. You can lock it into different slots to adjust the height of the Wheelie Bar. And right now I have it locked where I like it in the last slot. But if you adjust it wherever you want it, you can put the zip ties there to lock it in that spot. Because if you don't, as you're driving, you bashing around, you just driving, you know, you're hitting some ramps, that wheelie bar will pop off if you have the wheelie bar on. Even if you're driving and you're hitting wheelies, from the impact, the wheelie bar will pop out of this slot and it'll just be back there flopping, dragging on the ground. And you'll be like, what is going on with my car? And you'll pull it over to you and it's just your wheelie bar back there. And then you'll pop it back on, you start driving, you hit another wheelie and it pop off again. It gets aggravating. So, zip tie trick. Let's get this body off. So there you can see where I made my skid plate fit. I have the 4 bolts and I have 4 washers. Now on the back of the skid plate, it has 4 like posts that comes out. I'm not gonna say there you can actually just screw up into the skid plate. The skid plate has like 4 posts coming down in those locations. So you can shave those posts down a little bit and then drill the holes into your body and then pop it down into the holes, and then maybe use a couple washers or something to take up that space. Or you can leave the post, but you're gonna need a lot of washers if you wanna leave the post. So I just shaved them down a little bit and then I use washers to take up the rest of the space. And that thing ain't going nowhere, it's on there. Another thing about this E-Maxx is the transmission, the gearbox is all metal gears. I'm not gonna say all metal gears. There is 1 gear in there that's plastic. And when I built this truck, I built it and I bought an extra plastic gear just in case that 1 plastic gear in that gearbox fails. I can tell you, I had this truck for a while, bashing it on 6S and everything, and I haven't had any problems out of that plastic gear in there. I done broke a drive shaft, I done broke some arms, I done broke some steering knuckles, but I haven't broke that. So that's a good thing. I like that. So as you can see on all my builds, I like to dye my stuff black. I just like to dye the stuff black because I think it looks better when you got your builds going on, wherever you're doing green, orange, whatever. When you dye the stuff black, because that was gray, that was black. That stuff was black. It was just a bunch of different colors in there, light grays, dark grays. You know how Traxxas do. If you don't know, Traxxas like to mix a lot of different grays and stuff in there. So when I build my cars, I dump everything in a bucket, throw some hot water in there, and I'll throw some dye in there and dye everything black. One day I'll post a video on that. So I'm gonna start off with, as you can see, like I said earlier, I have the RPM front bumper up there. It's a little beat up, but it helps you out a lot, and it's tough. I have the RPM stiffener plate up there in the front that holds the 2 bulkheads together. The bulkheads are RPM. I have the RPM top arms all the way around, the front and the rear. I'll get back there later. RPM, yeah, the rear ones, the bottom arms too. I have the RPM skid plate along with the Traxxas skid plate. The RPM one slides right on top. I have the dual servos working up there. So yeah, man, this thing has dual servos. Another thing you don't see nowadays on these newer trucks is two steering servos. So that drag link right there connects both of the steering servos, and then that top link right there hooks to the wheels. And yeah, so both steering servos are working to turn the wheels, so I don't have any problems turning this thing. The drive shafts, man. So because I built this car, I ran into problems trying to get a drive shaft to fit. I didn't know at first that the E-Maxx had a lot of different models. I didn't know they had a lot of different models. They have the brushed one that has 2 motors on there, and then they have a couple other ones, the different ones. You could tell by the chassis. The chassis look a little different in them. So I didn't know that until I was building it a little bit. I got into my build. So when I got into my drive shafts, I was buying drive shafts and I couldn't find any drive shafts that would fit for the front that leads from the transmission right here up to the front differentials that turn the front wheels. And it's a drive shaft that goes, it's super long. It starts like right here and it comes all the way back to the rear differential to turn the rear wheels, because this thing is 4-wheel drive. I couldn't find a drive shaft that would fit. Every one I will order will either be too long or too short for the front and the rear, because they have so many different models for this thing. So what I ended up doing was I ended up getting some E-Revo drive shafts. Plastic E-Revo drive shafts, because at first I was trying to get some E-Maxx metal drive shafts, but I couldn't. That's when I ran into my problem. So I ended up going with some E-Revo drive shafts, and they were too long too, but it was cool because both of them was too long. So what I did was I got both of them and I lined them up about where I needed them to be. When I had everything apart, I held the transmission in with my hand from the other side, and I got both of the drive shafts where I needed them to be, and I wrapped a piece of tape around them where I wanted it, where I felt it should be, and now where I was gonna make my cut. And you can use a piece of tape, or you could use a marker, paint marker, anything like that, or either a razor blade to just scratch it up to make your mark. And when I lined them up to the differentials, both halves, I seen where the splines where I could cut it to make it work, and that's what I did. So that's what I came up with right there, man, and it works out. It works perfect. So it has a little bit of gap in there just so it can flex a little bit if it needs to. And I did the same thing with the rear. You can't see it, but I did the same exact thing with the rear back in there. It's gonna be pretty tough to see because I got this thing pretty bulked up. I got it bulked up with all these RPM parts. As you can see, scratches everywhere. I go crazy on this car, especially when I first started driving it. I was driving it on 6S, man. So another thing I did, a problem I ran into was the battery hold downs. Them things was almost impossible to get. And I kept finding them in Canada, but I couldn't get them shipped to me for some reason. I didn't know getting stuff shipped from Canada to the US was so hard. That's crazy. I order stuff all the time from a lot of different places, but Canada, I didn't know that, to building this E-Maxx. So the battery hold downs, you got 2 in the front and you have 2 in the rear, and it's pretty much just some plates you stick in these slots and you screw them down. They screw from the bottom, and it just holds the batteries in. Well, them things is, like I said, is almost impossible to get unless you find somebody that's selling the whole E-Maxx online like this, which they will have those things in there, and they're not going to take them off for you. Don't ask me how I know they're not going to take them things off for you. But, yeah. So what I did was I actually got my Dremel tool and I drilled. Oh, first I used my drill, and I drilled holes going straight down in a line on all of them. You'll be able to see from the other side. You can see it now. I drilled holes going straight down, and then I actually just used my Dremel tool, the cut wheel, and I just connected all of the holes and made me some slits. Because I was building this vehicle, and I was kind of mad that I had to do that to the chassis, but I didn't have any other choice to hold my batteries down. And what I did was I bought some Velcro from Lowe's, and I just put it in there, and now I can slap my batteries in there and adjust my strap the way I need to. And I haven't had any problems with 4S or 3S batteries fitting in here with the width or the length. And now I don't have any problems with the height either, because I know a lot of times when you go with the factory style battery holders, you have a limit to how tall your batteries can be because they only can snap down, so high, you know what I mean? So with the Velcro, you're able to actually use whatever battery you want. So I like that mod that I did. Even though I had to cut the hole in the chassis, it was like, it kind of weighed it out. It made it good that I could use any battery. So I was like, hey, that's cool with me. So that's another thing I did. Right now I have the Traxxas 2200 kV motor in there with the stock gearing setup for 6S. So it's set up for 6S, the stock gearing for 6S, straight out the box. That's what I have set in there because that's what I was running on 6S when I built it up, and that's what I wanted to go with. But as I've been driving this thing, I seen that it can't handle 6S. A lot of things were breaking, stripping gears, you name it, it was happening with this truck. So, and it's a pain in the butt to work on. It's built on the same platform as the T-Maxx. So as you can see, same arms. I have well, they're a little wider because it's like the T-Maxx 3.3, not that T-Maxx. That's the original narrow T-Maxx. This one will have the same chassis as the T-Maxx 3.3. The same arms, same 8 shocks. That's another thing that's a pain in the butt to work on when you need to, but I have the stock shocks on here. So, I mean, I didn't feel no need to upgrade those well, I ain't gonna say just yet. I just didn't feel the need to upgrade them because they haven't bent on me. They haven't been leaking. They've been doing me good. But, yeah. So, I have the Dumbo RC receiver and transmitter. So, I have pretty much, this is my Traxxas vehicle. And both of those are my Traxxas vehicles. I use one receiver for all of my Traxxas vehicles. That's the good thing about those Dumbo RC receivers and transmitters. You can program them to be in multiple vehicles. Only thing you have to buy is just different receivers and put them in the car, and then you can link it up to one transmitter, and that's perfect, man. So I do that. Only thing you have to do is adjust the steering here and there sometimes when you go from different vehicles, because the steering may be different from different vehicles, tires and the linkage and stuff like that. So you just adjust your steering trim, and that's all, and then you get to go. So I have a Hobby Wing ESC, the Quick One BL 150, which is from 3S to 6S LiPo. So I have my 2 wires running, so I could hook 2 3S batteries, or I could hook 2 2S batteries, that's what I do now. I run it on 4S. Like I said, man, 4S is just a lot better for this thing. Ever since I've been running on 4S, I haven't broken anything, stripped any gears. But that's maybe because when I was running on 6S, I started upgrading it every time I broke something. That's where the RPM arms and stuff came from. The RPM skid plate, stuff like that, the RPM bulkheads, and something you can't see. But if I ever have to go into this thing, I'll bring you guys with me. But I do have the Hot Racing differential cups in there. The blue ones, they're anodized blue ones. I do have those in there on the differentials. So my differentials are pretty strong too. I have the original Traxxas drive shafts all the way around. Since I've been driving this thing, even on 6S, not going super crazy, I only broke one drive shaft, and that was that one right there. As you can see, the boot is hanging off. I'm not saying I broke it because the boot is hanging off, but I broke the drive shaft right in there. See where the silver at, where it's spinning at? Right there in that U-joint. That's where these plastic ones like to break at. They'll split right in there. The boot I broke off by just trying to slide this new drive shaft on, and the boot popped off. But that's not a big deal. Maybe one day I'll get some CA glue, some tire glue, and I'll glue that back up there in place. But the shock towers and the body mounts, I do have the RPM shock towers and body mounts, but they're not installed right now because when I first started driving this car crazy on 6S, I went upside down a couple times and grinded down my post so bad that I wasn't able to put my pins back in there. And the RPM and the Traxxas body post, see the body post is just that slot right there and that slot right there, and the shock tower are different. You can't interchange them. I can't use the Traxxas body post and use the RPM shock tower. You got to use one or the other, you know what I mean? So I had to take out my shock tower and swap it with the Traxxas just because I had to change the body post to Traxxas. And the only reason why I went to Traxxas is because, like I said in my last video, I don't really, condone or prefer to buy expensive body post unless it's a shelf queen or something. Because once you go upside down or something and you bashing around and you tear them posts up, the ground is going to eat them up, whether they're plastic or aluminum or whatever brand they are. So I just go with the Traxxas ones, and when it eats them up, I'll just buy some new ones if it come down to it. That's not a problem. My receivers are just some Amazon. My steering servos are just some Amazon special servos. They do match. So I just purchased those just so I can, I mean, it's two servos, and you know, they don't need that much power to turn. I think they're like 25 kilograms each. So that's a lot of power to turn those wheels. And another thing, I just wanted them because they're red and black to match the build, you know. So I do have the, like I said, I do have the original motor on there, the Traxxas motor, 6S motor, with the Surpass Hobby cooling fans and heat sink setup. Keep my motor super cool. The ESC definitely is programmable. Like I showed you, it's the Crick One Hobby Wing. So I use my Hobby Wing program card on it. Yeah, I use my Hobby Wing program card on it. So it is fully programmed. Got my wires. So the wires go in a receiver box. I like this thing because it got a little clip in the motor plate. Clip the wires in there. Got them going right in there, and these ones comes out. That's the wires to the ESC. And then I have my power button. It's a little indentation right there inside the chassis. And I have my power button double-sided tape there. My ESC, I purchased a RPM ESC mount. RPM makes an ESC mount for this thing. So that's what I purchased because I didn't want to glue my ESC down, or I didn't want to double-sided tape it down because sometimes I like to pull it up if I need to. So what I'll do on a lot of my cars is I'll buy a mount, or I'll make a mount myself, and I'll attach that to the chassis. And I'll put me some Velcro. So like some Velcro with some double-sided tape. So right there you can see is I'm sorry. Glue starting to come off on that side. I had to change it over, but you can see it's double-sided tape right there, but it's glued. The Velcro is double-sided tape to the ESC mount, and then I have another piece of Velcro that's double-sided tape to the ESC. So I can pull the ESC up whenever I need to, and then I can put it back down. And that thing is on there. It ain't going anywhere. So that's how I like to do my setups. Maybe, I'm not gonna say maybe, but one day I'm gonna take that off and I'm gonna re-glue the part that's on the ESC mount, because that glue is starting to come off. So yeah, I have in the rear, like I showed you earlier, the Traxxas bar with the zip tie setup going on to keep that wheelie bar in place. RPM bulkheads, original Traxxas shock tower and body mounts, original shocks. But yeah, that's the E-Maxx, guys. Like I have, like I said, the wheels I purchased was from the T-Maxx. The T-Maxx is riding with the Proline bow ties right now, and these are the actual T-Maxx wheels. They was the chrome ones, and I just painted them black. That's all I did with that. But that's my E-Maxx, guys. So feel free to comment. If you like what you see, give me a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.